Sergio, very good to have you on here, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jacob.
Um, I've been checking out now Orgone. Do I have that
Yes,
correct? Okay.
that is correct.
Okay. I was stressing over it. I said, that I've heard people say it that way and they haven't been
Yeah.
corrected. I just want to get that out of the way first things first. When did Orgone begin?
Um, quite a while ago. About the first iteration, the foundation of the band was probably about 24 years ago, 23 years ago. And with the keyboard player Dan Hasty and myself, I play guitar. And he's been my friend we've been close friends since we were teenagers, young teenagers, and yeah, that was we'd been in and out of a couple other bands, and sort of Orgone was kind of like, hey, let's just drop everything. And what we wanted most was to play Booker T and the MGs and the Meters, and just be an instrumental rhythm section backing band. And yeah, and that's kind of really what kicked it off with a couple good friends of ours. And just it was just a stripped down four piece, and that was that was the kind of the beginnings and the origination. So I'm very lucky that we've had this kind of lifelong chemistry, and rapport.
Right.
I think that's a lot of what's at the heart of the band.
Yeah. And for going for that many years, I mean, yeah, there's definitely something there, especially between and you and Dan, you guys are the only original members right
That's
now,
correct.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So so initially it was a four piece.
that's correct. Yeah, and just doing all instrumental music. A lot of soul jazz, and like I said, Meters and Booker T and the MGs, and just kind of breaking down JB's funk instrumentals. And yeah, and the more we kind of just really dug our heels into that, it started growing. And then it was adding horns, and so we can do horn heavy stuff. And just kind of just kept snowballing from there. And Yeah, and just attracting really talented people to work with us, and that's been awesome. And that's kind of how it's rolled for ever since then.
Yeah. It's a good start. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and that's a good place to start it. Was there a discussion between you and Dan and the other two members of the original formation of what kind of music you guys wanted to make, or did it just kind of end up being this sort of
Yeah,
sound?
I don't know if it was so much a discussion, just that's what we really wanted to do. We want
Hmm.
like we've been working in just kind of bar bands and cover bands and things like that. Doing soul, your standard kind of Motown and soul sort of set lists, and your dance, your disco funk dance stuff. And that was fun, and that was really great to sort of as I mean, music we loved. But I think when it came down when it came around, we just were sort of wanted to be doing instrumental music for a good chunk of time. I mean, and this listening to this kind of stuff nonstop. So I don't know that it was much a discussion, just a natural thing of like, oh yeah, let's get together and learn these songs. And then we started writing things in that vein, and just started inspiring kind of just a whole new, I don't know, whole new way of things.
Yeah. And where did the name come from? When did that kind of enter into the picture?
Really right around that time. And it was just sort of a fluke. I mean, it came from Wilhelm Reich and his theory of orgone energy, which is this pretty long and involved story. But this guy in the early part of the 20th century, first half, kind of claimed he discovered this sort of energy of creation that humans give off in this, in heightened states, and created these boxes called accumulators. And our bass player at the time, Tim Glum, our original bass player, founding member, had seen a documentary on HBO about um, something that featured Wilhelm Reich, and just kind of mentioned this whole thing and thought it was interesting. And we didn't really, it was sort of like, oh, that's cool. And didn't really. It was in the running, among other names. And uh, during that time, after we'd kind of toyed with the name, we were backing up on a different artist. But and like I said, as a rhythm section, we were kind of priding ourselves on being a sort of a band for hire. And we were backing up this artist, and doing a gig up in Fresno, California. And in the Tim went to go have a cigarette by the pool patio in the motel we were staying at, and randomly enough, on the one on patio table was this a copy of the theory of I forget what I think it was called, the theory of Orgone and everything, and it was a Wilhelm one of his books, and so that kind of yeah, that kind of sealed it. It was sort of like, this is too weird. So I guess
I understand.
I guess
I
we
could
better
see
go with it.
that
You
is
know.
something that the universe is shouting, hey, this is the
Yeah, and in the end, it's a hard to pronounce name, and nobody knows how to say it. So, but so be it.
look, if the book had a different title, that's what it would have been, but
Yeah,
that's just what the cards were at the time.
yeah.
So how many gigs had you guys been doing kind of backing up different bands before Orgone started?
Um, not all that many. I mean, like I said, we'd been in and out of bands together before.
The book,
But
all four of you guys in different iterations and stuff.
yeah, yeah. Basically, we'd been friends for it was kind of it's that kind of scenes. A lot of people in their teens and early, like when it's just like you get in a band and first chance you get, it's like, oh, my buddies, I know this guitar player. Let's you bring your friends in and slowly kind of take over. um, so yeah, we were doing that kind of thing, and not a whole lot of backing gigs, but that was our intent. When we started just really bearing down on the rhythm section thing. Especially because Booker T was the band at Stax Records, at Stax Studios, and on everything from all the Sam and Dave and Otis Redding, and that's all Booker T and the MGs, and um, all over Heroes. The Meters were all over the Dr. John records, and the Alan Toussaint records. The Hodges brothers at Royal Studios in Memphis were the band behind all of the Al Green and Al and Peoples. It's these kind of punch and clock everyday guys who we just idolized, that were making that we realized, across all of these spectrums of soul music, and for each kind of region, it's like, oh, there's really a handful of guys who kind of were part of it all. you know.
Right.
Um, so idolizing that kind of thing, and really just I don't know, what having having great reverence for it, and so we weren't. I think over time we worked with a couple of the R&B singer named Lena, for a little while. We were the backing band for a group called Plant Life, which was ran by this guy named Jack Splash, who's become a really successful producer. And he got us on. We did a bunch of studio recordings with him, and ended up on some pretty prominent records. So it was, yeah, it was, it's just in conjunction, and in the meantime, playing as many gigs as we could, as just as an instrumental band. Up to, we were just cutting our teeth and just hustling hard and trying to play as much as we could.
Right. And to be playing with other people during that time and kind of moving as a unit through these different kinds of things, that's quite interesting as well.
Oh yeah, and just an amazing just experience and learning experience, and you really grow from that and learn a lot, and it teaches you to a little humility, and just kind of just to sort of also, oh yeah, just kind of to start taking the ego aspects out of it a little bit, when it's, especially when you're backing an artist, that it's like, you got to be badass and you got to play good, but it's also like, it's not about you.
Right. So during this time, and this is early 2000s that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah. At this point, it's from like mid 2000s.
Hmm.
When we were doing a lot of that stuff, we were also part of the majority of us were in a band called the Breakestra, which was a pretty prominent touring band out of Los Angeles that was doing a lot of kind of hip hop funk breaks. It was a great band, really really tight, and we toured the world, as part of that crew. Same thing with Plant Life. We went all over Europe and stuff. So we were keeping the fires going on our own, recordings and things, but also hustling, like I said, hustling to get gigs, and we're hooking up with some good people to sort of be the band for, or main backing band, and you know it, being a part of as a backing band. Yeah.
Hmm. Was it difficult to kind of differentiate between your own band and these other artists that you guys were all?
No, No, we were pretty set in how, what it was musically is pretty varied. So it wasn't like, as far as we always had our band for what we want to do, like what really is just kind of stoking our fires, and at that time, especially, and I know we kind of in the early aughts, there was a huge resurgence. That's when kind of all the Fela Kuti reissues, started coming out, and a lot of really excellent Afro funk and African funk compilations that were just mind blowing. That really just floored us. And I know, I mean, in part still still every time that's kind of been the good evolution of the band, is every time we sort of really have discovered something, we just have dug in hard, and it then just sort of becomes part of the DNA of our collective, I don't know, creative output, or just what we want to do. We want to have that element. And definitely, along the tougher, kind of harder hitting lines of, no one was really doing that kind of thing, in the people we were in, the different, artists that we were involved with. So it was, that was always our outlet, was Orgone, to to really just have at it, and and live in it and explore that.
Hmm. Did you feel like you and Dan and the other two original members were kind of coming from the same place, music background,
Yeah.
before going into it? Yeah. And then
Yeah.
also exploring other things as a group?
Yeah, we definitely had a common foundation, and everybody didn't come from the same, like, as from the same exact evolution, but whether it was rock or I mean, my first love was, metal and DC hardcore, and Minor Threat and things like that. But I think by the time
Classic
we,
metal groups like that,
yeah,
Minor
oh
Threat,
yeah,
metal groups
yeah,
specifically, yeah.
yeah, and we I think, but when we kind of, by the time we all met and were mingling and cover bands and things, it was, it was very much all, we were all pretty steeped in soul music and R&B and funk and funkadelic and Parliament, and that was kind of a pretty connective, that in New Orleans music, I think, was the kind of like foundational sort of tissue for us that we all really had reverence for. And then from there, it was, it's like, hey, let's do this as good as we can, and or just learn it right, or do our best to interpret this in ways that are satisfying. And we're pretty harsh judges. So yeah, to just to do it right, and ride each other for, to get better, and to do it better. And it just developed, and that was a really crucial foundation for being able to discover other things and kind of explore it together, having sprung from the same, from that same kind of I don't know,
Cloth,
wellspring. Yeah,
or
yeah,
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 whichever. Which,
yeah,
you guys decide. Yeah,
yeah.
you at home, you decide which is the right term. Um, so the first release from the band the self-titled LP?
Yes,
Was it the very first release?
yes.
And how long had those songs from that album been in the works before finally
Not
getting the
very long.
proper
Not very long. That was all within probably the first year of having said, okay, you know what, we're done with playing in other, with other bands right now. Let's just, we started. There was a local corner bar in the West San Fernando Valley called the Scotland Yard Pub, and our friend of a good friend's father was the owner, and he was trying to, he was managing it and kind of trying to make it it was just a little local watering hole with obviously a British and or uh, uh, um, uh, English, um, slant. They were actually Scottish, the owners were, but that's beside the point. um, uh, and he set up a Thursday night thing. He was just, let's see if we can get a little thing happening. And we ended up playing every Thursday there for, I mean, what ended up being 3 years,
wow.
and really without missing a single Thursday. So that really was a big part of the band development. And we were also playing wherever we could around town. Um, so yeah, within the first year of kind of like really deciding that, yeah, let's just focus on this, forget everything else. we started writing songs in that vein, and it was pretty, it was within that first year that CD, that first album. So, it was a good, it was a good creative kind of like start, for what yeah, just what we were into at the time, and just the expression of things, and all of that had come from just, we played all of that, we were playing it live, so it was like cool, we were able to develop it and really kind of hone that stuff in, and also really get into the whole notion of the craft of recording,
That was the
capturing.
initial stepping stone into
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Not to go back to minor threat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Nice.
So you're working on this, and you guys are playing together often, so you're really learning each other's moves and
Yeah.
where
Oh,
to
yeah,
be.
yeah. And learning how to perform, and learning how to play together, and really, in hindsight, most important, I think, is also, doing that sort of thing, is learning what hits. Like being able to read people, and like, okay, that's not, the kinds of things that, when people take notice, and it was great, and it built up we built up a thing to where it was just really, I mean, it was a tiny place, but it was just jam packed every week, and it was pretty exciting, and yeah, I think that was a lot. That was a lot of learning, of really just, or even playing in restaurants, to have people, you notice when people start paying attention, so it's, you take mental notes, it's like, oh, okay, that hits, that's good, that's without the intent of taking notice of that, you just kind of naturally, I think, like anything, you notice what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and did you feel like you were hitting some things that people were turning their heads at early on like that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it was, I mean, it was really just, trying to sound like a record, and trying to, I think that we could, what we worked on at the time was mixing our, there was, since it was instrumental, as far as, in the early days, except maybe with a, mic and the kick drum or something to give it some oomph, that a lot of it was just playing to the dynamic of, and like, not overplaying or not playing loud, or just kind of like making sure that we were mixing ourselves, so that it's like we're listening to each other, and it's definitely a craft of, to that you'll notice in better bands. It's like, oh, it doesn't even matter what's amplified. It's like they kind of mix themselves. They
Mhm.
play as a unit. So it's a presentation of music, as opposed to, anything kind of, I don't know, just, I think that was part of, not, and then there's your moments, there's solo moments and everything, but it's always just, that was our goal. You want to sound like a record, or
And
at
it
least sound like that record quality. We were very much about tones and vintage equipment and all that stuff too. So, that's the first part of all, being into 70s, 60s, and 70s records. Is that, now we got to get a bunch of, you kind of, all those tones are just, are inherent to instruments from that era.
yeah. Is that ethos still there in a sense for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That will never go away. That's, if anything, that's still the driving force, that it's always going to be like, to, I think it's maybe second nature at this point, in terms of just, without having to say too much, how we communicate, in terms of, say, when we're learning a song or rehearsing, of what, how to adjust things to make it work.
Mhm. Now, was that the self-titled release, was it the first release of any music that you were part of up to that point?
Um, yeah, actually it was. I mean, I think we've done demos and things like that, but that was the first sort of official, like, for me personally, that was, yeah, that, that we're sound like, putting together to sell. Um, so yeah, so that was a pretty, milestone, in terms of, I think, for us all to start something of our own, and put it together like that.
And how did you feel when it was finally the CD? You said CDs, right? That was the
Yeah, that was
format.
the format of the day. Well, it was a milestone to have product to sell, when we play, and I don't know that we put any more weight on it than that, but it definitely was, it's definitely like a sense of accomplishment, and now we have something to sell and something for for people to take home and listen, and even for the local little fan base that we were growing at the time, people definitely dug it, and um yeah, and then and uh, I don't, like I said, I don't know if it gave us some, yeah, it definitely fueled us to keep going, and then a few years later I started getting I a good friend of ours by the name of Steve K had recorded that album with us, and so kind of learned a little bit about some of the recording process, and as time went, I got really obsessed with production and just why certain records sound the way they do, and recording techniques and things. And after that, I got a cassette 4-track and just had started recording everything, and that kind of started my whole obsession with that. Um, and
Stemming from the original going in to record that first album, that was kind of the
No, you know what? I
or
think after it, to be honest,
okay.
after it was just sort of, some of the things. Some of the things where it was, we'd listen back after a year or two, and it's like, oh, some of the tones weren't super happy with, and the drum sounds, or I mean, minutia that only we're gonna care about, but but enough to to really kind of spark that curiosity of okay, but like, well, that doesn't sound, or a particular, this, why, how do you, I don't know, how do you get, doesn't sound like the drums on this Meters record or the drums on that, like, why, it's not just the playing, what is it about it with the tones or whatnot, and yeah, and that just sparked, this something as simple as a 4-track cassette recorder, and just experimenting, and that was, and really getting, there's something about tape that's just wonderful, and not forgiving, but just it's sort of I don't know, it imbues certain, there's certain tones that just really, drums on tape, there's nothing like it, it really elevates.
So it was that was the kind of initial step though of getting into the production side of music for
Yeah,
you.
definitely, yeah.
Um, so now how long after going into to record that album and you buying that initial 4-track, what was the kind of duration of that?
That was a few years. That was many years of playing, and like I said, we were touring with that point. Then we were um backing band with a group called Plant Life, um that was touring globally for I don't know, a couple of years. And then after that, uh, that's when most of us kind of became part of the Breakestra, and who was also the band leader of Breakestra, Miles Tackett, who's kind of a pretty prominent guy in the LA scene. I mean, he is one of the kind of fathers of the LA funk scene in terms of has had just really successful, long-standing, long-running funk club for 20 something years now, and it's still just a Saturday night staple. Um,
Not Thursday, just to be clear, that's not
yeah, not Thursdays. This is Saturday. Uh,
Thursday is
well,
for
it used to
the
be.
English pub.
Yeah. And he was doing a lot of analog recording, and and I think that was discovering things like, realizing, or discovering things like, what they were doing in Daptone, and at the time, and and just, how is this new, and it sounds amazing, and it's just perfect, and and all the Antibalas, and a lot of that Brooklyn scene was just, those guys were just ahead of their time in terms of, they were, resurgent, part of the forefront of that resurgence of what's now become this the huge kind of retro soul thing, which I don't, whether we're part of or not, I mean, it's still very much in the 60s and 70s steeped production and sounds and things, and Poets Rhythm out of Germany, also out of Munich, those guys, they were really, they were really the first guys to, I think they were doing that in the mid 90s, where, and they were kids, but making these recordings that had these James Brown drum sounds, and yeah, we heard that stuff and was just, I mean, it was just utterly blown away. And it's like, yeah, that's the kind of records we want to make, or at least the kind of sounds we want to have, still pursuing that. uh, but it's a lifelong thing. But yeah,
Right.
it was really, it was that in conjunction with this scene that was this movement that was really kind of happening, and it was just pretty pretty enthralling.
That we're still seeing now with new groups and new
Oh
bands
yeah.
coming up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that it started a movement and a wave that hasn't. It's still, it's still kind of, the shock waves of it are still, in terms of, it's not even shock waves. It's just yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to put it. What the right words are, but it definitely established that it's as a viable, that the audiences and people are hungry for that kind of grit and sound, warmth in
The feeling of it too.
and
Yeah.
feelings. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's soul music.
We
It's
can't
all.
forget about the
It's all.
feeling,
It
Sergio.
can't forget the feelings.
You were just skipping right by it like it
But the
was right
feelings.
there. And I was like, I hope he says it or I'm gonna have to interject here. And I
Okay,
didn't
well,
mean
you did.
to. I know, and I feel like an asshole. I apologize. I just need to get it out. Um so when you began working on the production side of music, do you recall the first sort of were you did you mix something or were you recording somebody? What was your initial step into that?
Um, the the 4-track cassette machine, and watching our friend Steve, who had helped with the first album. He was just an excellent engineer, and he's become very successful. And he's um just yeah, kind of being around that, and watching him, and also talking a lot about aesthetics. But really, when I got the cassette, and then just sticking around with that, and trying mic stuff. And the first thing I think, what I think that what really struck was, we used to, so the studio we have called Killian Sound. It's a very guerrilla, but shouldn't it's a very under the radar guerrilla kind of studio, in terms of, it's in an old duplex that just kind of, um we used to live at, and it's become, just, excuse me, just a studio. We used to rehearse in the living room, or what was the living room. It was kind of a bro pad, couple,
Sure.
three dudes were living there, and then we used to rehearse in the living room. And um
Aesthetically, I mean, that is the place to do some work
yeah.
musically.
Yeah, it is. And so, what struck me, I think, the first real thing that I guess was the true spark of, I don't know what just really became the obsession, was that, we'd all had experiences going into studios, and nice studios, and as sidemen, or in demos we had done before in other bands, or recording as part of other bands. And it was always a pretty sterile experience and environment, and headphones, and everyone's really separated, and it doesn't headphones never quite sound right. Your tone isn't, it just does, it feels, there's a disconnect. And then, you always, in that era, especially when it was mainly digital, you hear playbacks, and it's just sort of like, it just sounds, again, just sterile or cold or kind of lifeless. um and I had just, once I started messing with the 4-track, I was recording everything all the time. So I'd put a couple mics on the drums, and then kind of just figure out how I can use 2 tracks to record the rest of the band. And when I just was recording all the rehearsals, and realized, and some of the playbacks, listening back, that there were just moments of, where it sounded like a record, not maybe as a whole performance, but just snippets where it was sort of like, oh, that's it. That's what we were looking for, just that vibe and freedom, and just whatever it is, that inequality of tone, that was, yeah, that did it for me. That was the first time of just hearing back, and it's like, oh, I don't know, that it's maybe not any one specific thing, but just sort of a conflagration of elements that create this sense of what feels like a record or something. And really, I think it was just a truth of the moment, just captured well enough. And tape does something that really just brings this warmth, and I don't know, it's embracing.
Right.
but that was pretty much that. Yeah, that hasn't left me in terms of that was that discovery that it's it's not that hard on one sense, it's not some unattainable, unreachable thing. It's like anyone can do it. Oh yeah, and then also that you know there's also an endless chasm to explore in terms of how much there is to know and learn and understand, and always writing that cycle of going back to beginner and simplifying things and try to unlearn half of what you've done. And sometimes the simplest things always come, not sometimes, oftentimes the simplest things come about the best, or most satisfying, that's truest and it's most unfucked with.
Right. So it was kind of a trial and error
Oh yeah,
situation there.
oh yeah, it's still trial still trial and error, man.
I'm trying to make it look better. Yeah, but no longer. You know which end is up, and everything's gonna be perfect from now on, right? Because you're a professional.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's okay. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. I was really fishing for that one. Uh, so did you start with just? I mean, it was starting with recording and mixing other people's things, other
I
people's music.
Not really. It was just recording, and we Steve K, who was our good friend, kind of our consigliere on a lot of that stuff for a while. He mixed the first album we put out with the Ubiquity Records, which was in 2007, the Killian Floor, which half had been recorded, or a few songs he had recorded, and then the rest I had recorded at Killian once. So I got my 8-track machine, and he mixed it also. So learning a lot just via working with him and watching him work, and talking to him, and working together. I mean, pretty much learning everything. Yeah, I did not even attempt mixing for years and years. That's definitely, it was another thing that seemed so out of, like, oh no, that's for professionals to do. And um and like anything else, it's just another another angle, or another facet of the whole, the craft and the art form, in terms of like shaping sounds. And um yeah, I didn't really get into mixing until much later. And that was in working with a friend of mine, and I was producing his album, and I think he just kind of put me up to mixing it. He said, "No, he can do it. Let's do it." And it came out great. So
That
yeah,
was
that
that was the
was
first foray into mixing.
yeah, and that was around 2009 or so,
And
maybe.
for the folks at home that don't know exactly what mixing is, could you give a brief explanation to what we're talking about
Um,
here?
Mixing is basically taking, you record all these elements, if it's, whether it's a band live in a room, and then vocals, and then horns and such, and it's taking all those individual elements once they've been recorded, and just painting your sonic picture. It's what you hear as the stereo, as the two things coming out of this, as the sound coming out of the two speakers. It's blending to taste. And there's a lot of, and that's an endless, uh that's an endless study, as far as craft and art form. And yeah, there's, it's such a wide spectrum of and something that's partly subjective, in terms of what's good or what's not, or what you can consider good. But yeah, it's blending the elements, and painting the picture,
I like
or I guess focusing the picture, I should say, because
even
the picture's
better.
there.
So it was your buddy's music was the first foray into that.
Yeah, it was a excellent singer songwriter by the name of Danny Jameson from Chicago, and a piano player. And yeah, we worked on his record for the better part of a year, on and off, not continuously, definitely, but yeah, I
12,
think
12
once
months of this back and forth there. Yeah.
yeah.
Every day in there.
Yeah.
Uh how did you feel when you finally heard the first time hearing the final product of what was put down?
Um, I was enthralled. Well, first I was stoked that he was happy with it. and then we went to the mastering session together, and it was hearing the mastering engineer kind of dance around, these EQ knobs, and hearing what he took these, mastering being the final step of the process into um, getting a recording ready for release, or for to make it onto a CD or whatnot. Um, and It's a really, it's a crucial step in making things a little louder and making them all fit together as far as from song to song. But yeah, it was hearing it come to life. That was definitely gave me confidence as far as to keep dabbling in it, um and yeah, still doing it.
Now, has mastering ever interested you?
No, that's one thing, that's definitely, it's always best to just kind of like leave that. I mean, as a producer or whatever, and an artist, you still gonna have final say, but mastering, it's always best to let the last pass, go through someone else's ears to make adjustments, and someone who knows what they're listening for, as far as in a more of a macro lens, and
Yeah,
just
kind of taking a step back and being able to look at it from a different point of view.
exactly, which is, yeah, that's tantamount. That's so important, especially, when you're at those last stages, when you've spent, countless days and hours, and it's perspective is, it's hard to maintain a clear perspective when you're so deep into a project.
Right.
Even, yeah, and even with mixing, don't, I love to mix, but sometimes with some projects, I'm too involved, and it's just better to get it to someone else's, ears and talents, that can bring something else to the table, or a different perspective. Yeah, and we always have to be open-minded to that, that someone else's perspective can help elevate what our ideas are.
Yeah, and it's like kind of that process. It seems like, of like, oh, it's not just me that's going to listen to this. It's you want it to other people as well.
Yeah,
It's
totally, right. And that's when you need that other person to be like, well, okay, yes, no. Make it
uh
not whack.
yeah, yeah. Do you prefer to record music or mix music, or is it kind of there's just an equal love of both?
Yeah, I mean, creating music, recording music, mixing. I mean, it's all different aspects. It depends on what day, you know, like, said this week I'm really into mixing, and
Okay,
doing editing and post production, but I love recording. I love
and we're and
creating.
we're and we're almost done with this week, so it's like it might
So yeah,
be. Yeah, we'll
it's
check
gonna
back
be,
in next week. We'll check
yeah,
back in
yeah,
and we'll
yeah.
see.
I'll probably be writing and recording. So
Okay, cool. And we'll touch base on that.
yep,
Um, Now you've just mixed some records and just produced some records, right? It's not always
that's correct.
production
Yes,
and mixing.
yeah.
Do you prefer to have both those tasks, or have them just one task, whichever one it is, or is it kind
Um,
of again a blend of both? Sometimes with
yeah,
some.
it's a case by case basis. Sometimes it's I love to be part of the recording, and helping to put together, and production, even on a sense of just the guy who puts together the files and gets everything ready for delivery, and once we're done recording it or whatever. But yeah, sometimes, and sometimes I'll be so attached to something that I'll be pitching, putting my hat in the ring for, like, hey, let me get a shot mixing this before we, go to somewhere else, or with other projects. I'll know right off the bat. It's like, okay, like, I have a couple guys that I like, respect and admire, and that I like to send projects to. And sometimes it's just kind of a no-brainer that, yeah, this is too, I don't want to take this on. This is, I love the creating and the recording of it, but I someone else can put it together better or quicker. Sometimes it's just a matter of timelines.
Hmm. Is there? Do you notice the point of which you're like, I'm too far into this to have an objective opinion on this
Yeah,
piece?
usually way too late.
Fair enough.
um But yes, there is a point. Well, definitely, it's just it's the total cliche, the overcooking. That's just overbaked, I should say. Yeah, when it's just like, okay, now all the freshness has been completely just somehow squelched out of it. Too many hours, too much time, and it's hard to step away and remove yourself from after, because it's what do they call that, loss leader or something, or no, the I forgot the name of there's a principle, the term for that. But when you've invested.
And let us know in the comments what it is. Yeah, let
Sure,
us.
sure.
Yeah,
But when you've just invested so much time, but that's also conversely sometimes, it can, I don't know. There's no absolutes. It's art, it's music, it's there's no absolutes. But sometimes it works against you. Sometimes you have to throw your arms up and just give up, and then come back 2 weeks later, forget all about it, and start over, and then there it is.
right. When you listen to certain songs, if you ever go back to something or you overhear it somewhere else,
Yeah.
do you get taken back to like, oh yeah, this is what we were working on, like this is what was
Oh
happening,
yeah.
we're working on this,
Yeah,
and
anytime I'll come across something that from the pat that I've worked on, absolutely puts me right back into the time and place of what was going on around that time, and when we were doing, and then my fears and worries about this or that, or yeah, about the recording, and then if yeah, hope being that by the time it ends, it's like, oh yeah, it sounds pretty good. Well, not like, oh god, but you know,
right. Is it difficult to let go, to finally be like, this is it, this is what we're looking for, and it just lives as it is?
um, sometimes, but it's always best to do that. There's I've some engineers I know, definitely. I forget. I can't attribute to quoting who said it, but he says the mix is never finished; it's abandoned. You just kind of like, yeah, you just have to go, well, this is okay. It's good. I think it's good. It's good enough. It's got to go. Because you run the danger of, if the deadlines are good, timelines are good, because and it's also a picture in time. I think Rick Rubin's, I've been seeing a bunch of snippets of him talking about, something that I've always adhered to, that it can't be too overly precious. I mean, yes, it's art, and we're crafting something an artifact that's going to exist, but also it's a record of a moment in time.
Now, sometimes you lend a hand in playing on some of these songs every once in a while, adding some
Uh,
guitar.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Depending on if it needs it, or if or I'll be invited to play some guitar on someone who I'm working with's album. But and then sometimes I'll just be part of the rhythm section. I definitely like to be hands on with the rhythm section, and it's I find it easier to kind of lead the music with or be able to kind of call the shots a little bit if I'm actually playing with the band, that you're in it, you're feeling it. Then sometimes it's a lot clearer to feel when, oh, we should be going to this part then, or we need the bridge right here, or it's funner too. But yeah, so I mean, it's my guitar playing's there. Sometimes it's used, sometimes it's
Um, do you do you like kind of stepping into another person's world and see where they're coming from
yeah.
on their own kind of
Uh,
whatever?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of, you know, um, I love that. I mean, that's what it's all about, really. And if we're talking about production or working with an artist, if someone comes to me with an interest in, that working on their project, it's their project, so it's always gonna, gotta approach it with some kind of uh, um, respect, and the basic understanding that it's their baby. So I want to do, you want them to be happy. So
Right.
it's like, yeah, I want whatever their wishes are. It's like, okay, you're bringing me in because they're, I have some aesthetic or something that you like. So it's, so my job is to help them to use whatever I can to help their vision come to life. So yeah, I very much like to step out of myself when, when it's something either not necessarily genres, but I mean, there's everyone's into their own thing. So, songs and music, and there's always something to learn and understand. And yeah, I definitely appreciate and enjoy stepping out of myself and then bring in whatever elements I can to that. So it's always going to be something at least, original to us. Um, you know, at least truthful,
Right. Does working with other musicians and artists in their in this capacity kind of lend itself for inspiration for your own music
Yeah.
when you get back to
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's all collaboration anyways, I mean, even with my music or with Orgone, it's there's no one, I mean, I might be maybe the pushing force, as far as recording and producing our albums, but it's the collaboration of Dan and myself and the rhythm section and the people and those singers we work with, and it's all collaborative. So, but yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's but and every album, every project, every recording session is there's always something to be gleamed from it and learned. And that's the most inspiring thing to then go back and then, oh, we did this on this guy's record. Like, I want to do some shit like that. Yeah. So
right.
yeah, I mean, and yeah, I love it. I mean, it's super. Yeah, that's a good question. That's yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
Yeah.
What else helps to inspire you to kind of sit down and construct a new idea or song?
Um. I mean, you just listening to music, hearing something. I mean, everything. At its best, everything. But really, just the drive to keep creating.
Right.
Um. And again, not to be, and it's not like we're not. I don't know what to classify. To give some kind of quantifiable like classification for whatever you want to call what we do as far but it's also not to be too precious about it, and not to put too much weight on anything. And it's also it's also fun, so it's like not to be so overly serious that it's can't put too much weight on things like that, or it's has to be this, or it's supposed to be that, or this is gonna hit, or this is, I don't know what any of that means, but um
Even the
yeah,
people who use those kind of terms, I don't think that
just
they really know what's
yeah. So yeah, I think just the drive to want to keep on, just keep doing that and keep hopefully developing, um, one way or another. And sometimes it's yeah, just hearing a song that's like, oh, or whether it's a new song or an old song or a song I used to know and just haven't heard in a while or whatever. Um, I think it's all yeah, it's always going back to roots. I think really actually, as I'm stammering through this, I think going back to roots is probably always what ends up being the most invigorating and inspiring to be like, yeah, let's go, want to get whatever, start pick up a guitar and start, messing around and, whether it's whatever ideas or, um, yeah,
concept or whatever it may be.
yeah, yeah, lifelong loves, like just, yeah, I mean,
That's the way to say that. Lifelong loves. The three L's. Do you feel looking at the span of Orgone's music now, do you feel like the way that you go about constructing an idea or kind of hashing it out has changed since the beginning stages back at the restaurants and whatnot on Thursday
um,
nights?
that's, You know, I mean, yes and no. It's still kind of the essential thing of like, even if there is an idea someone brings in, like I said, it's cool. It's like, it's never just one person who's really, like writing when it comes to Orgone. But definitely, I think the thread is still there. Even if there's someone, if Dan brings in a riff he's got on the clavinet or something, it's still just everybody kind of starts fucking around, jamming, and there's a point when it's just like, wait, stop, that's it, that's fun, like we're onto something, and then that sparks the thing, and then we'll do it together, and just start crafting and devising it, and if a singer's working with us, then everybody's got input, and until and we'll keep or hacking away at it till we got something, that we're
Both?
happy.
Can we?
Hashing,
I'll say both. Yeah,
hashing it out, hacking away, same thing. All right. So yeah,
that's a way to say it. By the way, I
yeah.
mean that's come on. Nobody could say it
Uh,
better. That's it.
but
Uh,
it's essentially the same. I mean, maybe some of the, you know, there's more maturity or something in how some things are done, but a lot of it's still that same thread of just kind of like what we do is play well together. So just start playing together, and we'll know when when we're onto something.
right.
We'll feel it. Everybody's, we listen, and that's the one thing I'm proud of what we have in this crew, and that's when we write, when we do anything, it's that everybody's his heads up and listening, and we're all working towards a common kind of like, yeah, how does this make it just lock in, and how it becomes a and when it feels good.
Is writing for you more of a communal effort then, rather than a solo kind of
Generally,
situation?
speaking, yeah. I mean, I have ideas, but I don't. I'm very slow, I think, to com- get a whole composition. And I have a library of stuff I've done, but I think I enjoy the collaboration. I can't. I'm not. I'm a guitar player, and other things I have a some ability at, but I'm never gonna downplay the fact that it's of when you get someone who knows their instrument and being in the room together, and we can tell each other what to do or have comments, but yeah, the collaboration is it's always it's always better than the sum of the parts.
No, that's the way to say that as well.
Yeah.
A two for two? Come on, Sergio. You make me look bad because I don't know. I don't know how to phrase these things like you do. A wordsmith.
Oh,
Um, what has it been like to make music with this band and Dan for the past 22 years? Is that what we're looking at roughly?
yeah, well, I mean, I've known Dan now for 25, 27. um that I mean, it's amazing. It's very lucky that we've stuck it out, and that we have that chemistry and that rapport, um and the things we've learned in being able to just to be a better musician when it comes to playing with any other musician, and pretty I'm very thankful for that, and pretty lucky that to have that chemistry, and to know what it's like, or to know what like, oh, when you can cut down those lines of communication, to the bare bones simplest, and it's effective.
And that only comes with time.
I think so. Mileage, for sure. You know.
Again, you have to one up me with the word ship. Okay, all right. Yeah. No, no, mileage does sound way, way, way better though. Yeah, the mileage. Um, and what has it been like to kind of write and perform with the amount of people that have been in out of the band for this many years?
um, it's been ever growing. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, just so many different personalities, and creative types, and everyone's got their own style of or aspect of soul music that they appreciate and excel in, and it's been couldn't have it any better, really. And just then we started touring pretty heavily in 2009, and did so in good, for pretty nonstop through till just about till 2018, um and even 2019, even right up until lockdown. Um and it's on stage, it's 8 people, so that's that's you've got to have a certain, there's a certain amount of revolving chairs that are just gonna happen. With, horn players are pretty busy, so it's, locking to be touring as extensively as we did, it's very hard to keep the same personnel for that amount of years.
Right.
Um, and we've had a lot of different singers on stage and on record, and it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome to just be able to have collaborated with so many different people, and they've all brought their own unique um things to the table, and that are uniquely them, and it gives the, all these different aspects to what's essentially still just, this Orgone machine that yeah, that, we want to do it all, and luckily we've had a lot of people from different, from going to something as simple as like, oh, very disco-y like kind of things, to more raw funk or raw soul kind of things. It's awesome, and it's awesome that we've been able to attract people, as people leave, that they're, it's not long before someone comes along that, we just, it's a, whether it's an energetic thing or whatever, that people who are attracted to us, have a very much same an aesthetic, and, and are very similar how they want to hear things. So
Right.
pretty great.
Is it difficult to bring in an older song that maybe, I mean, nobody else has touched besides you and Dan? I mean,
Um,
for the amount of albums that have been released and songs and whatnot.
sometimes just because the catalog's so vast. Yeah, going back to play older songs. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, if it's fan favorite kind of stuff, it's, we'll learn it. Sometimes it's just, we have so much, it's like we don't need to go back that far necessarily, or it's, it's hit and miss. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes, we'll have a go and realize it's just doesn't feel the same way.
Hmm. And members are always putting their kind of spin on these things. And
Yeah.
is it open for interpretation, these kind of songs that are on the set
Um,
list?
to an extent, definitely to an extent, like, I mean, respecting that this is a, a different person and a different musician or artist. But but there's definitely, when it's certain parts, you got to learn the parts. You gotta learn. I mean, there's these, or parts, it's, you can interpret it, and, but if it's like you got to learn it.
Right. Do the work, right?
Yeah.
Do you change the way that you play songs as time goes on?
Yeah, I think inadvertently. I mean, that just happens to everyone. To an extent, and yeah, definitely, it's like whatever, whatever mood, or not even mood, but just however your playing is developing, and or, however, whatever things you're into is going to affect how you're approaching everything or something. So I'm sure, I haven't really analyzed to what extent, but I'm sure they do change, especially, or even with like cover songs, which, we do plenty of. We always are trying to pull out some obscure cover or something we love, that just to be like, man, I've always wanted to play this song. Let's play this song. Or covers that we've been doing for a long time. When like, say, we used to do some songs 6 years ago and put it on a shelf, and then it's time to relearn it, and then realize that I used to play it so wrong. So there's always time for reevaluation, and, and going back to the source material, whether it's one of our songs or a cover, to kind of get it back to, oh wow, why did I change that? How did that change? I'm too, I don't know why I got in this habit, but
But then
it just,
then it's corrected. It's course corrected.
yeah, then it's course correction, and usually, hopefully, satisfying when you do
Yeah.
to realize that's like, oh yeah, fuck, I've been doing it wrong all this time.
Hopefully. Here's hoping. How many albums has there been now?
For, I mean, I think we're at like 13, with a couple of kind of unofficial album releases, but yeah, 13. Like, there was a live in the studio one that we did a couple years back, and there was also a project we did called Fuzzed Up, that wasn't really officially an Orgone release. It's on YouTube as Orgone, that we did for it was kind of a library music album for a library music house based out of the UK. But they wanted garage rock funk. So
And who doesn't?
So that was right up our alley. So that was, that's kind of a non-official or Orgone album that's still an Orgone album. It's all
Right.
instrumental. It's a lot of fun. It's actually probably one of my favorites of just there's a certain, especially being into library music and all these great compositions, from kind of things that weren't meant to be for mass consumption necessarily in that way, that there's a freedom in just sort of coming up with cool compositions and shrugging them off and being like, oh cool, and not, again, going back to that, not being super precious, and meeting your deadline and realizing that they couldn't have been any better.
Right. Um, do you prefer to piece these songs together or to perform them live in front of people, in front of an audience?
Both. I mean, love when it's, when it's like wrapping up production or not even production, even when we're just when we've done tracking the song and realize, oh, what a fun song, the newness of it, that's pretty awesome. But I don't think I don't think I have a preference, because they're both super just exhilarating. And then playing something live this past weekend, Orgone just we did a run of shows in Northern California and played a bunch of stuff off the new record, which we hadn't had it. We haven't, um, which we haven't done since we haven't gigged since New Year's, and it's awesome. It's awesome when when you got some new things that we wrote together that we're debuting on stage, and people. Well, the best is when people know it, and then or just seeing the reactions to it, and when people enjoy it, that's awesome. And and realizing that it's a whole different life to it, once you're playing it, because live, louder. usually starting by being louder.
It's a good. You gotta have a jumping off point. Is the main theme of this. Uh, are you paying attention to the crowd? Is that kind of is grabbing your attention when
I
you're up
mean,
there?
I don't know if it's, I mean, you're performing, so I don't know if it's paying attention so much as just, but yes, even with eyes closed and all that, I mean, it's all about the exchange of energy, I mean, you're definitely paying attention, to how, how things are feeling. And, the more excited a crowd gets, the more pumped the band gets. And, it's just kind of a symbiotic thing. And yeah, that's what makes a great show,
Mhm.
yeah.
What's going through your mind when you're performing?
Very little, ideally. um yeah, just, don't fuck up, just to stay in tune, and to play good, and be part of the team,
Mhm.
and and yeah, just like, and yeah, you want to kick ass, you want people to feel it.
Right. Was it kind of difficult as you started bringing more people in to the group? And it's a 8 piece right now, as we're
Yeah.
as we're speaking. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
With
you know what, actually it's a 9 piece now.
with all these different members,
Yes.
with was it kind of difficult for you to find your place within where you're supposed to be in these songs earlier on, as more and more people started coming in to the group?
uh no, no, I think it's luckily all this music is so dynamic that everyone can exist in where they're at, and if at its best, it's working together like a machine, and it's beautifully, well, everything's just in concert, in tandem, uh and it's awesome. No, it's not at all, I mean, um with people who are, listening, and paying attention. So
Do you prefer to play in a large band now, uh, looking at it in present day?
yeah, it's very forgiving in terms of, you don't necessarily feel that there's less weight on any single person, so it can, it's definitely a little more forgiving and easy in that manner of not, you know feeling like there's any particular focus. I mean, obviously the singer will always be a focus when they're singing, but there's a lot going on stage. So, it's, yeah, I do enjoy that. And it is different, than say, well, as a 4-piece or something where it's rhythm section and then, basically the two main instruments that are going to be soloing or doing melodies. And so, yeah.
I can
Um,
see why there's a little bit of a difference there. Yeah.
yeah.
If you were to step into like even a, let's say, a 3-piece, just bass, guitar, drums, would you have to kind of change the mindset a little bit going into a group
Oh
like that?
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. I need to practice for a good 3 months before that first gig. That's for, to carry that. Um, that's a lot of responsibility. So, um, but yeah, that changes the mindset completely. But it's also that'd be fun. And I think it'd be just a matter of approaching the aesthetic of what it is where we would be wanting to accomplish, with that sort of thing. You
Right.
can't play certain, I mean, obviously the repertoire is going to be geared a certain way because of the limitations of the instrumentation.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a little bit of a wall to conquer.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Unless you're Krungbin and then you can do anything.
Krungbin's amazing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Marco. I mean, it's mind blowing. Just I heard some of the, they put out those live recordings last year, and there was one, I forget what song was, that goes into the Sister Nancy Bam Bam, that reggae tune. I mean, early dance hall tune. And Marco did the vocal melody on guitar. Amazing. It's never a song I would think would even be able to be interpreted with guitar melody, just doing the voice. And it
Right.
kicks ass. It crushed. It sounds so amazing. I was blown away. I'm like, these guys are, well, first of all, there's nothing that dude can't do, in terms of his ability on the guitar. He's incredible. And the
Right.
whole band is they're just so tasteful and groovy.
Oh
Yeah,
man, that guy DJ, I mean,
yeah.
lives in the pocket. Is
Oh
he
yeah, yeah,
always right where he needs to be? It's
yeah,
phenomenal. And
yeah.
and Laura, I think her name
Laura, yeah,
is.
yeah,
I mean, amazing bassist. It's just that every part of that, everybody's acting exactly how they need to be.
yeah,
They're exactly where
yeah,
they need to be all the time, and it's
yeah,
just amazing.
yeah. Absolutely agreed.
So unless you're Krungbin, it's going to be a little bit of an
Yes,
issue.
it'll take a little work.
It's gonna take a little bit of time.
And yeah, and yeah, your song selections may be limited.
Slightly, yeah. Unless Mark is there being
Yeah,
able
unless Mark
to,
is there, then
yeah.
it's then anything's game.
That's the exception to the rule. Um, Orgone in definition is the life force distributed throughout the universe. Do you feel like this band has had some sort of a force on your own life?
Oh yeah, I mean it's our baby with in Dane's. I mean it's been the driving force for the biggest the majority of my life. In terms of just also being the everything else kind of springs forth from it, whether it's you know all, all of my any of my engineering and mixing and producing has all come from the work I've done in Orgone. That's really the only reason why I've been approached, is because people like the sound of Orgone records. Um, and as a band, as a rhythm section, Orgone's been, we've been working with the group Say Shishi, and I've been
Oh,
producing
and
albums.
a amazing group, by the way.
Yeah,
Say she.
yeah, and no, those women are incredible. They're and it's become a family at this point with us. But uh, I think I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
We're talking about Say She and these things that have derived from the origin of the
Yeah. Oh,
project.
Orgone. Yeah. So Orgone has been the force, the musical force, and it's been the wellspring for and my career, and our collective careers, and just our identity and whatever the spectrum of music. um but yeah, it's and it's still there. That drive is always just what's, what, I don't know, keep making things, and Orgone is really the vehicle for, you know, doing something with to our satisfaction, with holding true to some aesthetics, some of the things that we hold, we hold high or whatever. Um, yeah. So it's um, it's definitely it's definitely been, ever since, it's definitely been the focal point for me for since its inception.
Many
Of
plus years now.
Yes, yeah. That's still just like, I think for me personally, it was always just, if I were to see or hear this band, like I would want it to be my favorite band if I'd never heard of them, or like for me
Right.
personally. I don't know if anyone else will ever match, that, but, and I don't, and without trying to sound like in an egotistical way, but just the drive has always been like, well, if I never heard, if I was a teenager and I was just discovering this, it's like, would I be into it or something? But that's also me teenager back then. So I don't know how well that translates to anyone else, but that's what keeps me going.
I'm with you. I understand. And Sergio, I really appreciate you coming on here, sir. Thank you very, very much. I'm so glad we were
Jacob,
able to do this.
thank you, man. I appreciate your questions and your time and making it super easy, and
I
great
was
question.
I was I was really trying to make it difficult there in the middle, but next time. But before I let you go, I got some promotion to do here.
Of
So
course.
Orgone's music is streaming everywhere, wherever you get your music. That's where you can find them, from all the releases, right? Everything
Yep.
is
Yep.
from the beginning to the end here.
Yep. Yep.
Or the current. I don't want to say the end, the current. Let me say that.
Thank you.
Let me revise that.
You never
And
know.
I do know. Here's to another 22 years. Um, you can find the band's merch at the website, which is orgonespace.com. And you could also find the vinyl at coalminerecords.com. That's where a big chunk of it is, right?
That's correct. Yep. Yep. And also direct from our website as
As
well.
well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or and Bandcamp is always a good, Bandcamp's always a good platform.
I appreciate your transition into that because that's what I was going to mention next. And that's at orgonemusic.bandcamp.com is where you can find that. And everybody can stay up to date with news, shows, and everything else by following the band on Instagram at Orgone Music on Instagram. And I saw a little bit of um, resonance. Am I saying that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The single series is it
Yeah.
that's kind of going on or that recently happened?
Yeah, and we're gonna continue that. That was carried on through last year, and a lot of those songs were worked on some in some small part during the pandemic, but it's basically, that we're never stopping in the studio, and always collaborating with singers, and we're just always creating. And the Resonance series was kind of, it wasn't like, these don't necessarily fit an album or a theme for an album necessarily, but they are songs that really believe in and just want out in the world. And so that's what started the Resonance series, which is just, let's put out, a series of bi-monthly singles, single every other month, and um um yeah, just some collaborations with amazing people, some of which are in the band now, and we have a whole batch of the this next coming the forthcoming years worth of Resonance. I think it's a cool, just way to sort of keep things rolling in between albums.
That's
But
awesome, and it's a little bit of a deviation from what's going on.
yeah. It's still the same DNA. But these are, they're all standalone. It's not necessarily trying to be part of like like with Chimera. Definitely most of that was a batch of things that I think were conceived and very much part of a whole, of a piece, as far as a record. But yeah, the Resonance things are just great songs that we just want to keep cranking out.
It's awesome. And that's Three Palms. That's
Yes,
put up by Three
Three
Palms.
Palm Records. That's
Three
correct.
Palm Records. Okay, cool. And that'll be linked below at threepalmrecords.com, I believe, is the website that you can go
Yep,
check out
correct.
these previous singles and stay tuned for some more.
Yep,
All right, cool. And do we have
absolutely.
anything else, Sergio, or is it do we cover everything?
Um, that's yeah, I mean, this was a lot.
It was a lot. It was
Yeah,
it was a good chunk. It was a good
yeah,
chunk,
that's
I'd
great. No,
say.
thank you, man.
Um,
No, just keep an eye out for, Orgone is going to be touring mostly. The couple of the fellows will be touring with Say Shishi a lot through the summer. Orgone will be playing at a couple of festivals. One in playing at High Sierra in Northern California and at Floyd Fest in Virginia in July. And I think we're going to be doing some touring in the fall. And if you can catch us with Say Shishi or sometime in the fall, we've got a couple 45s coming out over the summer, and we're just going to keep it coming. So stay tuned. Yeah, stay with
Beautiful.
us.
And again, that's the Instagram is Orgone Music at Orgone Music. So go ahead and go follow them to keep up to date with all that good stuff. And Sergio, thank you again, sir.
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna
man. Really appreciate you. Yeah, you having
I
me on,
appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
I
This was
know
all done.
you.
It's all Sergio. I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay, sir.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, sir.